Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
It's Friday, you bastards.
America is back to work. Today we learned that in January our economy created 467,000 jobs.
Holy crap.
That's not all. We learned that job growth in November and December over last year was revised up by more than 700,000 jobs.
Oh.
On top of that, 400,000 jobs previously, on top of the 400,000 that were previously reported. This morning's report caps off my first year as president. And over that period, our economy created 6.6 million jobs. 6.6 million jobs.
Oh! Wow. That's pretty amazing. That was in the middle of the Omicron surge, too. And the previous 2 months were revised up from what was told to us to be, it was lackluster, wasn't the greatest. Turns out it was. November, it wasn't the 249,000 jobs that the Labor Department had estimated. No. In November, the economy added in November, the economy added 647,000 jobs, not the 249,000 that the Labor Department told us. And it added 510,000 jobs in December, not the 199,000 jobs that the Labor Department, something tells me, we need to clear out our departments. Like the Postal Service, too, just mentioning. And the Department of Labor, who keeps getting it so wrong. And so it means that there were 700,000 more jobs added at the end of last year than previously estimated. So we added nearly 7 million jobs, 6.6 million jobs to our economy. There's all kinds of good news here today, but you know what? People just don't, they're not enjoying the boom. They're not enjoying. Why aren't you enjoying the boom? Oh, that's right. Inflation. Well, what about wages? What about that, Joe? What about it?
We still have a lot of work to do.
Okay.
Making sure every American has a job is a great start, but it's not the finish. For many Americans, wages are up this year.
Oh.
In January, wage increases were strong across the board, and that's good. We have to continue to keep wages growing, and we need even more high-paying jobs. Jobs you can raise a family on and have some breathing room.
Yeah, and so here are the wage numbers. Average hourly earnings increased, to $31.63 average. That is up almost 6% over the last year. And yes, we understand that inflation is up as well, about 5%, right? 5%. And it's in certain sectors. Look, I filled up my car today. I have to use premium because I have a big ass engine. I know I should go electric and all that. But I haven't bought. My car is 10, 11 years old. Yeah, my car is 11 years old. It's a big ass engine. It takes 15 gallons of premium. It was $4.10 a gallon. It was like $65 to fill up 15 gallons, like $65. I literally had sticker shock. I get it. But could you not enjoy the economy growing as much as you mourn the price of gas? Couldn't we possibly celebrate where we can celebrate and say, well, at least we're making more money to meet the moment? Now, you know that the Fed's going to increase interest rates probably in March and probably by, I'm guessing a quarter of a percentage point. We'll see. And that will have the effect of tamping down inflation, but it will also increase if you have an adjustable rate mortgage, it will increase the interest payment on your mortgage. Guess who has an adjustable rate mortgage? Guess everybody. Yes, me. But hey, it's been a really good ride at 1% or 2%, whatever it is. It's been a really good ride. But honestly, can't we just enjoy? I tell you, the partisanship when it comes to reporting the news about our economy is so obvious and it's so palpable, and people are buying into the gloom. People are buying into the doom to the point where Americans think that the economy is worse now than it was in 2020 when it was tanking, when it was literally crashing and we lost 20 million jobs. Why? Well, maybe it has to do with, this particular outfit here. This is what they said first thing this morning about the jobs report that they were waiting for, and they got it really, really, really wrong.
So, Peter, how will the White House spin this? If it is true, as ADP, the paycheck cutter, is suggesting it could be a loss of 300,000 jobs, how is the White House going to put a happy face on that?
If past is precedent, and usually at the White House it is, he'll come out and he'll say this is just proof that people need to get vaccinated, and he'll say that they've still created more jobs in a year than any president ever, but that this is an extraordinary time because of COVID, and they want to just... and you know what? He'll probably also, if it goes the way that the last few of these things have gone, push for the Build Back Better plan, because they use that as a catch-all. Right. It's going to create jobs. It's going to lower inflation. That's the only way to get anything better.
So, Peter, what vaccine do you get for job loss?
I think it's in the trials still.
Okay, good.
I mean, that is just vile. That is disgusting. That is wrong. That is, illiterate. That is what they reported this morning. How's he going to spin the loss of 300,000 jobs? And what vaccine do you take for losing your job? What vaccine? Oh, it's still... I mean, this is crap. This is mung. This is just disgusting. And like mung, it infects people with where they're thinking that the economy is just sucking wind, and it's doing great. And like the last couple of these went, they were revised upward by hundreds of thousands of jobs. They were wrong. November was wrong. December was wrong. I mean, they've been getting it wrong over at the Department of Labor by hundreds of thousands of jobs.
I'm proud of the role the administration played in this economic plan has played in the recovery. The rescue plan that Democrats passed to get the economy going again, the bipartisan infrastructure law that's starting to get underway, rebuilding bridges, roads, highways, ports, airports, internet. There's so much more that we're doing as well. Look, we all know we're in competition with the world. These announcements are the drumbeat of a job resurgence, unlike anything we've seen in our history. And it didn't happen by chance. As a result of the economic plan I put into action on day one.
Good. Give yourself credit, because it is due to the investment in the American economy. It is due to not just the BIF, the bipartisan infrastructure package, but the American recovery package. And yes, if we had Build Back Better, it would actually lower the costs that households have to come out of pocket for with regard to things like, childcare and insulin. Instead of paying $1,000 a month for insulin, you'd pay $35 a month for insulin. Oh, that's bad. Fox News can't back that. They can't support their viewers' households doing better, because then how are they going to exploit misery? How are they going to double down on resentment? How are they going to tell people that things suck if people are totally enjoying the economy? No, this is so if inflation is running at 6% and family incomes are rising at 7%, which economy would you choose? Would you choose one where things are rising by 2%, but your wages are flat? Or would you choose the one where your wages are increasing by 7% and prices are increasing by 6%? Right. But they will never tell you that. Listen, they're lying. They're scheming. It's a fact of life.
all things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Does everybody remember this?
Who knew what when? Who was talking to coordinators of the protest? Did you talk to the former president that day?
I've talked to the former president umpteen times, thousands. I mean not thousands
on
times,
January
but
6th.
countless times. I talk to the president. I never talk about what we talk about because I just don't think that's appropriate. Just like I don't talk about what happens in Republican conferences. So
Sure.
I've talked to the president numerous times. I continue to talk to the president
No,
since
I
he's
mean
left
on
office.
January 6th, Congressman.
Yes, I mean I've talked to the president. I've talked to the president so many. I can't remember all the days I've talked to him, but I've certainly talked to the president.
Yeah, and on that day was. Can you share any of the insight of what he was thinking about that day?
Brett, the people we need to come testify are the people who can testify to the fundamental questions. Why didn't the United States Capitol, the People's House, have an appropriate security posture on that day? And what have we done? Those are the people we need to hear from.
Yeah.
That's the information and testimony we need to get. That's what we should focus on. But I don't think that Benny Thompson, the chairman of this committee, said everything's on the table until we raise this issue about the Speaker's office is the one who knows what the security posture and why it was the way it was. Once we raise that question, he said, well, everything's on the table.
You remember that? And do you remember the follow-up to that, which happened with a very local reporter? A very local reporter.
There's some confusion over what you told Brett Baer on Fox News on Tuesday night, so I want to clear it up. First off, yes or no, did you speak with President Trump on January 6th?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke with the president last week. I speak with the president all the time. I spoke with him on January 6th. I mean, I talk with President Trump all the time, and that's I don't think that's unusual. I would expect members of Congress to talk with the president of the United States when they're trying to get done the things they told the voters in their district to do. I'm actually kind of amazed sometimes that people keep asking this. But of course, I talk to the president all the time. I talked with him, like I said, I talked with him last week.
On January 6th, did you speak with him before, during, or after the Capitol was attacked?
I'd have to go. I spoke with him that day after. I think after. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I spoke with him in the morning or not. I just don't know. I'd have to go back and. I mean, I don't know that when those conversations happened. But what I know is I spoke with him all the time. But Taylor, the key here is the people we need to speak to. The people we need to talk to are the ones who can answer the question, why wasn't there a better security presence that day?
Yeah. So he thinks it was after the insurrection is when he talked to the president. He thinks it's after. Well, that was, months ago. And since then, Jim Jordan was asked questions by Congress member Jim McGovern about whether or not he had a chance to go back and check his records and find out when it really was that he talked to the president. Because what's interesting about Jim Jordan's behavior on January 6th is that at 1:32 in the afternoon, just minutes before the House was breached, he spoke on the floor, Jim Jordan did, for 5 minutes. And the reason why he spoke on the floor for 5 minutes at 1:32 in the afternoon was to reject Biden's electors from Arizona. Yeah, to reject. Now, what gave him the idea that he should object to certified electors being counted in the joint session, which is a ministerial, ceremonial sort of a thing on January 6th? Well, he never really did check his records, because when Jim McGovern finally was able to talk to Jim Jordan on the C-SPAN and ask him, did you have a chance to go back and check your records? He still didn't know what time it was when he spoke to Donald Trump that day.
As far as me personally, I talk to the president all the time. I talked to him that day. My understanding is, from my memory, I talked to him after the attack happened and we were moved to the chamber. After. I may have talked to him before. I don't know. But all I'm saying is that I had nothing to do with any of this. So that to me is just, well, you guys, they're a Democrats' obsession.
Well, it turns out that since the Supreme Court refused to say that the previous guy has any executive privilege over records that would clearly show whether or not the president former of the United States was involved in a coup and an insurrection, meaning two different things. You know, the coup would have been bloodless. Jim Jordan would have been involved in the coup portion of the overthrow of the will of the people. And then, of course, Donald Trump pulled the trigger, pressed the button on the lives of the people in the House that day because he felt that was the only play he had left to buy himself some time so he could think, scam, grift, figure out how he was going to remain president of the United States in spite of the will of the American people. Well, it turns out that since the Supreme Court agrees that there is only executive privilege belongs to the president of the United States, and we only have one president of the United States at a time, and Donald isn't it, Biden is, and Biden refused to exert executive privilege over Trump's records that were being asked for by Congress to have a little look-see about matters like whether or not there were members of the House who were playing along with a bloodless coup. And the Supreme Court also decided that, well, there's a crime fraud exception to, executive privilege. You can't claim, I'll just insert this here. The Supreme Court didn't say this. I'm saying this. But this is, provably true. Okay? You don't have attorney-client privilege if you and your attorney are secretly plotting to commit crime. Like privilege doesn't apply to criminal activity, right? There is a crime fraud exception to privilege between an attorney and a client. And the same, I would say, is present for a president. And the reason why I would say that is because Richard Nixon, right? He had no claim of executive privilege over those tapes because crimes were being plotted and planned on those tapes. Okay, so the Supreme Court said, no, you can turn over the records. So now the House Select Committee that is investigating not just the insurrection, but the coup attempt too. And remember, Jim Jordan wanted to be on that committee. Remember, Jim Jordan, who is an obvious target of the investigation, wanted to be on the committee doing the investigation. How convenient could you possibly get? Being your own juror, your own judge, your own investigator, your own prosecutor, your own defense attorney, all at the same time. Why, that would be a crime. And of course, Nancy Pelosi said, you can't have targets of the investigation investigating. That just makes no sense to me. And so he was told he could not be on the committee. But the White House call logs, which were turned over to the Select Committee, clearly now show that not only did Jim Jordan speak to the president ahead of the insurrection and the coup attempt before he went to the floor to object to the Arizona slate, but that the call lasted a full 10 minutes.
To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
As far as me personally, I talk to the president all the time. I talked to him that day. My understanding is, from my memory, I talked to him after the attack happened and we were moved to the chamber. I may have talked to him before. I don't know. But all I'm saying is that I had nothing to do with any of this. So that to me is just, well, you guys, they're a Democrats' obsession.
Yes, we're obsessed with a violent attack on the Capitol, and we're obsessed with a coup attempt that actually had plans to use the National Security Agency, the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security to seize voting machines, all in service to a dictator's, hopes, dreams, and desires to remain president for life. Yes, of course we're obsessed with it. We're Americans. We're Americans. We like democracy. Sue me. Jim Jordan refused to even check his records so that he could be upfront and above board about whether or not he spoke to the President of the United States of America the morning of January 6th, just ahead of him going to the floor and objecting to the certification of the Electoral College. I mean, this is just so bizarre. So now, Congress is sitting there mulling whether or not to subpoena him to appear because he refuses to voluntarily cooperate. He refuses to check his phone records. He refuses to tell anybody the truth about anything. And so you can't swear him. You can't put him under oath. You can't subpoena him and get his testimony. And so now Congress is going to twist themselves up in a knot, they form the shape of a pretzel, whatever, or, any of the positions in the Kama Sutra that they feel applies so that they could figure out whether or not to subpoena him. And I have a more elegant solution. It goes right back to the most beautiful thing that any society has ever been handed as a governing document. And yes, it would be the United States Constitution, which has been amended along the way to make us a more perfect union. And one of the things that was added after the founding, and this is why when you have strict constructionists, when you have justices sitting on the United States Supreme Court who say that the Constitution is not a living, breathing document, it doesn't grow with our intellect or science or our ability to, orient ourselves into the times in which we live. No, it's a strict interpretation of what the founders intended in the 1700s. Yeah, right. Well, we have amended the Constitution 26 times. And the 14th time that we added an amendment was an amendment that said that if you participated in an insurrection against the United States of America, or you gave aid or comfort to any such person who was trying to overthrow the government of the United States of America, or trying even to prevent Congress from doing its legitimate work, then you cannot serve in Congress. You cannot serve in the Senate. You can't be president of the United States, etc., etc. Well, when it comes to the presidency, okay, there's a national, a federal thing with regard to the 14th Amendment that has to occur in order to disqualify a man, a woman from ever being able to run for president. However, that is not what needs to happen with a representative or a senator. Oh, no. Oh, hell no. That particular disqualification would happen at the state level, as evidenced by the North Carolinians who are trying to get Madison Cawthorn to be declared ineligible, to disqualify him from ever running again, from even appearing on the ballot in the next 2022 election. It's being done at the state level. And the state of North Carolina somehow has decided that it needs to convene a 5-member panel to hear the complaint, and then they would make some sort of a decision about whether or not to disqualify him. Well, that needs to happen in the Buckeye State. That needs to happen in Ohio. It needs to happen in every nook and cranny of Ohio. Jim Jordan must be disqualified from being on the ballot in 2022. Jim Jordan must be disqualified, as Paul Gosar needs to be disqualified in Arizona, etc., etc. And so now maybe you understand why members of the House were so reticent to even have a January 6th committee to look into what really happened by nonviolent means and by violent means on that day. Now, I've said this a million times. I'm going to say it one more time, 1,000,001. If it weren't for the violence, it might have succeeded. If it weren't for the violence, it might have produced the result that Trump was after. We may have had enough confusion about fake slates of electors and real slates of electors, and we may have had some sort of an effort to seize machines. We may have had fake audits going all around this. We may have had a population that was so bamboozled and so completely snow jobbed by these members that there may have been more stomachable attempt to overthrow the results. However, because of the violence, everybody looked at it and everybody said, this is outrageous. This is just beyond the pale. Okay, they were beating police officers. They were beating them. They were wearing tactical gear. They were beating them with Blue Lives Matter flagpoles. The irony is just exceptional, right? And so the violence actually allowed us to do an investigation, which then produced the nonviolent coup. And we're learning every single day about a memo from this one and a memo from that one and a fake slate of electors in this state, and over here in this state, also a fake slate of electors over here, and over there, a fake slate of electors, and everywhere, a fake slate, fake. Everything was fake with them. And we've learned about, how they were trying to weasel their way onto the committee to investigate themselves, and how they were literally going to appoint themselves their own judges, their own juries, their own executioner, everything. And every day we learn another sordid, smarmy little detail about the sordid, smarmy people we have serving. And they must be disqualified. That's my solution to what should happen to them ahead of 2022. Now, I realize we haven't had any hearings yet. I realize that. And I realize that there are so many people that don't pay any attention to anything that's going on in politics. They don't pay any attention to, the select committee's work. They don't pay any attention to, they just have to move on with their lives. They just have to, take care of children. They just have to go to work. They just have to pay their bills. And they are dissatisfied. They are not happy. They are not enjoying the boom. They don't even know there's a boom. And they don't know what really happened. And that is why those hearings have to be on the TV in prime time. They have to be.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right. The Freaky Federalist Society is having its meeting right now at Lake Buena Vista, Florida. And Mike Pence just stood up and said, Donald Trump is wrong. I had absolutely no right to overturn the election. He said what I've been saying is that, the vice president of the United States doesn't get to pick the president of the United States. One person does not get to pick the president of the United States. Here's a little more.
Duty is ours. Results are God's. And the truth is there's more at stake than our party or political fortunes.
You think?
Men and women, if we lose faith in the Constitution, we won't just lose elections. We'll lose our country.
Well, that was monumental.
Oh, that's it? That's all I get? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, CNN. Thanks for going to the Federalist Society, where, by the way, the Supreme Court justices, I believe Gorsuch, I don't know who else, they will speak to the Federalist Society because you got to dance with the one that brung you, but they're not going to air any of the remarks. How is that not a problem? How is the non-political Supreme Court of the United States of America, how are the justices allowed to give remarks to a Federalist Society group of people who paid dark money in order to get them on the Supreme Court, and we're not allowed to hear the remarks? Can you imagine? Can you imagine if we had a dark, shadowy, group that was picking Supreme Court justices, and then after we exposed the dark money that was picking the Supreme Court justices, like we had names of people, like Leonard, what's his name, Leo Leonard, and all the people, Carrie Scavino, the people that actually select the names and hand it to the Republican senators and say, this is who we want, this is what you're going to do, and you're going to get this person on the Supreme Court. I don't care if you have to destroy the filibuster, Mitch. You're going to do it. You're going to do it. And Mitch does it. He literally uses the nuclear option, gets rid of the filibuster, and puts Gorsuch on the court after holding the seat open so Obama didn't get to place his nominee, Merrick Garland, who, oh yeah, he's just a radical lefty, isn't he, Merrick Garland? Isn't he just every kind of socialist that you could, yeah. And Mitch McConnell was willing to blow up the filibuster and hold that seat open for almost a year so that he could make the Federalist Society happy. And now you've got that same justice who's going to speak to the Federalist Society, but in secret. We're not going to be able to hear or see the remarks. It's just unbelievable. Brother David.
Sister Sinclair Lewis was a prophet.
Yes.
Well, the sun is out in Kansas today, but boy, is it a cold day in America. I've been listening to this. I'm remembering, I've been thinking a lot about a caller you had a couple, maybe 3 weeks ago, who said, we can't wait. We need to be registering people to vote now.
Mm-hmm.
We need to know how slow this process is going to be for it to be done right. That's why I always tell the chat room, tell 10 people who don't listen to you to go to freespeechtv.org or randirhodes.com, because there are still more of us, and it's the ripple, not the sea. But it's daunting, I got to tell you.
I know.
I know you know.
I do know. But, you know, I have to tell you something. I've been thinking about you, too. But because I've been watching, there's only one episode, I think, of this thing. Maybe there's another one now because, you know, I don't really watch TV during the week, but I do, you know, some binge watching on the weekends. Yeah. Well, there's this, I think it's HBO, I want to say, but it's called Someone Somewhere, and it takes place in Kansas. Have you seen this?
Yes.
What do you think?
Well, I've only seen the first one as well.
Right.
I think it's promising, but I have to see where it goes.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah, mine. I'm scared because I just binge watched the first half of the last season of Ozark, and I'm like, well, now kind of this is what's going on in Washington, except it's money laundering and drug deals. But the nice thing about Someone Somewhere is that is actually filmed and based, you know, it is based in fact, so I have hope for it because it really is in Manhattan, Kansas. But it didn't grab me, but it didn't turn me off either, so we'll see.
Yeah, I felt the same way about it, but I couldn't stop thinking of you. I couldn't stop thinking of you and, like, you know, being a fish out of water in a place like Kansas. And then all of a sudden it became clear to me that Kansas is like every other place and that people who you know, have some talent or have something to give or who are, you know, that they find each other. That's kind of the premise of this. And
that seems to be where it's going, yeah.
And I just hope that it fleshes itself out. Now, I don't know if you know this, but the woman that stars in that thing, this is also another reason why I tuned it in, is because she is a burlesque star, a big one in New York.
Gorgeous girdles for everybody.
Exactly. And she's bawdy and she's dirty and she's a burlesque star, a real burlesque star in New York. She's got this huge New York following. And then all of a sudden she turns up in this series that takes place in Manhattan, Kansas. And I just couldn't stop thinking of you and me and our friendship over the last 20 years. And I thought, you know, I hope it's good. That's what I was thinking, too. I hope it's good.
I think it could get there. Like I said, I didn't hate it, but it didn't grab me.
I know.
I'll watch it.
I will just say this. The song, when she finally, you know, gets to it, should have been a blockbuster. It should have been a killer. It should.
Well, because of what it has to say.
Yes. But, you know, what is it? It's a Kate Bush song, right?
Totally. Yes, exactly.
But it should have been like a big.
Yeah, like When Beneath Our Wings kind of thing.
Yes.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
There are still more of us, Randy.
Yeah, I know.
And
the people are coming.
And we must keep them coming, and that is, there you have it.
Well, listen, you know, the right wing is getting like even more brutal and brittle and more breakable and more fragile and more, you know, they're like screaming memes now. Their entire reason for existing at all is to try and make other people mad or to
conflict culture, sure.
Yeah, I mean that conflict culture, exactly what I was talking about yesterday. And but honestly, that can't be an entire reason to elect people. It just, the economy is doing well.
So much better.
COVID is about to actually.
It's gone in like Iowa.
Yeah. Oh, apparently. Yeah.
As far as we can tell. Well, here's the thing. Remember the old commercial with Ella Fitzgerald hitting the high note and breaking glass?
Yes.
If they're getting that brittle and we get that loud about all the good that President Pop and what this administration is actually doing, well, maybe we'll shatter them.
Well, they're so breakable. They're so brittle. They're so shatterable. They're so
transparent. It's like spun sugar.
They really aren't very strong at all. It's all been bluster and bullying, and that can't be like the base of your existence. It just can't, because you're gonna implode is what it is. You're just gonna implode. You're not gonna be able to cope and deal, and you're just gonna implode.
And Lady Pence actually said something I agreed with, because it's true. If this goes on, it's not about a party or any parties falling apart. It's about the constitutional republic falling apart.
It's crazy. I mean, there's so much to lose. There's so much at stake with regard to a free society. Here we are trying to solve problems in a free society, right? Which make it a little bit tricky because we have free speech, right? And so we're trying to have a conversation about where is the line between dangerous speech or incitement, or, where is the line between disinformation and propaganda versus free speech? And should we have, when I got into radio, okay, just saying. Okay, I understand that I'm an old, bitter old bitch. Okay, I get it. Okay, but that said, you had to have a license to have a microphone handed to you. You had to have a broadcasting license. And then early in my, adventure, they said, no license, no barrier to entry. Any idiot can have a microphone. And look where we ended up.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. This is ridiculous. You can't expect to give people who say they self-declare themselves morons, but decide that they're going to talk about science. The morons are going to talk about science. The morons are going to talk about whether or not you survive a pandemic. The morons are going to talk about race relations. The morons are going to talk about American history. The morons are going to... Please give me a break with this. This is just madness, okay? And like I said, if you're going to give a moron a microphone, then label it that. Moron with a microphone. This is fantasy. This is not, this is fiction. This is, lunatic fringe stuff. Just label it. At least people will know, oh, I'm listening to a moron. But you know what? I like listening to the moron.
Mary had a little man. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
There are those in our party who believe that, as the presiding officer over the joint session of Congress, that I possess unilateral authority to reject electoral college votes. And I heard this week that President Trump said I had the right to overturn the election. But President Trump is wrong. I had no right to overturn the election. The presidency belongs to the American people and the American people alone. And frankly, there is no idea more un-American than the notion that any one person could choose the American president. Under the Constitution, I had no right to change the outcome of our election. And Kamala Harris will have no right to overturn the election when we beat them in 2024.
Wow, guess who's running for president, everybody? Guess who? Another moron with a microphone. You know Mike Pence's claim to fame, right? He's a moron with a microphone. He was a talk show host. He was a talk show host in Indiana, is what it is. And he was, he parlayed that into a seat in the House. And Donald Trump selected him because he looks like what Donald Trump imagines a vice president would look like if you were casting one and went to central casting. And that's why he picked Mike Pence. And we have an epidemic in this country of morons with microphones. And, you know, one of the callers wanted to know, he didn't want to go on the air because, you know, they're very delicate. The petite little giver goddesses out there that, you know, watch the TV, but don't, you know, they want to talk at it, but they don't want to talk to it, even though it's a call-in show. They don't want to do it. But they call Brett. They like to call Brett, and they like to ask Brett all the questions that they have for me, except they don't want to talk to me. It's just, they're just so delicate and fragile, these men in our audience. But anyway, he wanted to know who a moron with a microphone might be. Well, there are so many morons with microphones in this here country, so many that just, you know, tell you right up front that they don't bother to prepare. They don't bother. Some say their talent is on loan from God. They're imbued with the Spirit. And they're just a vessel. They're just a vessel, and it all channels through them. Have they read anything? No. Have they analyzed the situation on the ground? No. Have they studied the science or the political science or the history of the thing that they're going to do? No, they have not. And so there's just so many, like Hannity would be a moron with a microphone. I mean, it's just like, it's an epidemic. It's been an epidemic. You're telling me Steve Ducey or his son with the blonde hair, that guy that goes to the White House press briefings based on the fact that he's a legacy hire? Yeah, that... If not for his daddy, he would never be within 100,000 feet of a White House press corps briefing room. But he's a legacy. That's called affirmative action, by the way. Just thought I'd mention that as an aside. If your daddy went to Harvard, why, you get extra points. That's called a legacy. Affirmative action. So the douches, are they morons with microphones? You bet your ass they're morons with Greg Gutfield. You're telling me that's not a moron with a microphone? Steve Bannon, who's an evil moron with a microphone. This is a guy who is he literally committed fraud against his own viewers, was convicted of it with the We Build the Wall bull crap, and got pardoned by the President of the United States, who is also a moron with a microphone. So, I mean, there's all the blondes on Fox News, all of them.
You mentioned
the preacher. We didn't even get to the preachers. The preachers. I mean, the seriously demented preachers out there that defraud their viewers and these people who are trying to find a path to walk in this world, who are trying to help themselves from out of despair or depression or addiction or any of the other things that plague people, are looking to these people for guidance and wisdom and a path. And they're being bilked and defrauded every minute of every second. There's tons of morons with microphones, and Joe Rogan is one of them too. This is a guy who proudly proclaims him. He's the self-proclaimed moron, at least. At least he has the self-respect to say, I'm a moron. Why would you take medical advice from me? But he does that as a way out of being sued for medical malpractice, being sued for causing other people harm and death. I mean, this is the level to which we have sunk in this here world, in this country. We listen to morons, any moron that steps up to the microphone, any moron at all. They never cite. Listen, if somebody's going to cite their source, if somebody's going to tell you what you can read or read along or provide homework for you to follow along, then take them out of the moron with a microphone category. If they're willing to show you what they're relying on to form their thoughts, then take them out of the moron with a microphone category. If they're not willing to show you what they're relying on, if they are literally being the most bizarre hypocrite that you've ever seen come down the pike, meaning, okay, so here's this new subject, right? There's a whole new subject about Jeff Zucker and CNN and what is going on at that network. What is going on? And the excuse that we're getting is that Jeff Zucker was dating a woman, dating her for 20 years. Yeah. And that they didn't tell the company that they've been dating for 20 years, which was open knowledge in the newsroom at CNN to all of the broadcasters there, to all of the staffers there, to all of the cameramen on the floor there, the makeup art, everybody knew that this was a 20-year relationship that these two people who both worked at CNN were having. And so now there's talk from the Fox morons about how this is really a plot, and it's Chris Cuomo, who was fired by Jeff Zucker for aiding and abetting his brother, the former governor of New York, not for the COVID briefings, which CNN was encouraging, but that Cuomo was fired because Cuomo was helping his brother use that news network to do opposition research on the women, plural, who were accusing Andrew Cuomo of sexually harassing them. And that Chris Cuomo was fired for cause because he was helping his brother do opposition research on the women who were accusing him of sexual harassment. Now, having come from many, many corporate environments and dysfunctional news outfits, many dysfunctional news outfits, which really wouldn't qualify as being corporate, but were dysfunctional, I'm telling you, you don't know the story. I'm telling you, I don't know the story. I'm telling you that there is a much bigger story that has much more to do with Discovery merging with CNN and trying to launch a streaming network where CNN will be just part of a bundle instead of a global news network, which is what it is. And I got a funny feeling that the head of CNN, this global news network, Jeff Zucker, who was widely loved and respected by all of the people at CNN, was somehow pushed out using that as an excuse because Discovery doesn't really value CNN.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Seems like every other day in this country somebody says something dumb about the Holocaust, which is weird because it feels like it should be a pretty hard subject to be dumb about. It's perhaps the single greatest atrocity in the history of mankind. It must never be forgotten nor repeated. I don't know why so many people feel compelled to add a but also or a well actually to that, but I would say maybe just don't. And I'm not just talking about Whoopi. I got nothing but respect for Whoopi, but saying the Holocaust wasn't about race is a pretty wild take, considering if you ask anyone to explain Hitler to you, they're going to get to the words master race in less than 2 sentences. It was a pretty big hang-up for him. But she's far from the only one. Every other day a new story comes out about a conservative trying to either downplay or exploit the Holocaust, which I would argue are the 2 very last things you should do with it. Just last week in my home state of Tennessee, they banned a graphic novel about the Holocaust for upsetting language and lewd imagery, which is like banning a book about chattel slavery because the whippings were too violent. Oh, wait, they do that shit too. These subjects are supposed to be upsetting. Like, do you really want your kid walking away from reading a book about the Holocaust with a rosy outlook and a smile on their face? You don't understand how that could be a problem? Also, I feel like you would think they'd want their kids to understand how terrible the Holocaust was, because otherwise, how else will their children comprehend how hard their parents have it in the age of COVID restrictions? Yeah, that's the other thing they love to do, compare their own tribulations during the pandemic to the Holocaust, which is like comparing being caught in the rain without your umbrella to Hurricane Katrina. No one should have to tell you not to do that. But they do it all the time. Try to go into a dollar store. Hey, you need to wear a mask in here. You know what this is exactly like? The Holocaust. Like, hey, we need to see your vaccine information. You mean like they did the Jews? What? What the are you talking about? Like, I don't know. These people are so insecure about not actually being even a little bit at all persecuted in this country that they overcorrect to, we are as persecuted as anyone has ever been in history right now. And it is ridiculous. I don't know what needs to happen in America. I don't know if we all need to rewatch Schindler's List before the Republicans ban it in a couple years or what, but this is out of control. Love y'all.
Thank you, Trey. Honestly, so that brings me to this. This is a perfect example of morons with a microphone. Okay, I'm glad I brought it up. You know, these pastors that are doing this fire and brimstone stuff in support of a dictator, in support of blinding people to our recent history, blinding people to the reality in which we toil. Well, there are especially egregious pastors out there, and one of them is this guy, Greg Locke, who I've been collecting videos on for a really long time because he's a psycho, but making money hand over fist. I mean, he makes Tammy Faye and her husband, who's still on the TV, by the way. He's still on the TV selling buckets of, like, dehydrated Mexican food to preppers. A guy who got out of jail for defrauding the people that he was preaching to, who gave him money to buy a share of a condo in a place somewhere, I guess it was in Florida, of course it was, and went to jail for it, cried like a little baby when he got arrested, and is now out of jail and doing it all again. Except this time he's selling buckets of dehydrated tacos or rice and beans. I mean, and it's like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We won't get fooled again. You know what I'm saying? It's an amazing cycle of sucker that goes on in this country. But I wanted to show you what Pastor Greg Locke is up to these days, now that he's done supporting the autocratic dictator of a president that we had, who tried to overthrow our government, tried to overthrow the will of the people, tried to replace the Constitution with, I don't know, him. So now he's moved on to the book burning topic, which has been picked up by morons with a microphone as being needed in this here country. We need to burn books. We need to ban books. We need to burn books. We don't need to ban guns. We need to ban books. And unless and until we stop comparing and contrasting the danger of a book to the danger of a gun, we will never get ahead of this. We will never get it right. But here he is, Pastor Greg Locke, announcing he's going to have a book burning. I swear to God.
We're going to have a burning service. Oh, yes, you heard me well. We're going to send that mess back to hell where it belongs. We're going to have us a burning service. I mean a burning service. And we're going to burn some stuff up in this house. We're going to get rid of some unholy covenants and alliances and some word curses and some witchcraft that's been spoken over. We're going to get rid of. We're going to free some homes. We're going to free some marriages. We're going to burn some stuff. I don't care what Hasbro says. Ouija boards are a portal to hell. So bring some Ouija boards. Get rid of it, tarot cards. You better get rid of that Harry Potter mess in your house. That is full-blown witchcraft.
Oh, my God.
It's witchcraft. And the devil knows it. That's why he's mad at the sound system. You say, well, I got the collector's edition. Well, I'll bring extra lighter fluid for you then. Burn it.
You know what's really funny about that is none of his constituency has tarot cards or Ouija boards or any of these things he's talking about. They're going to go out and buy and patronize these businesses to go and burn them. These people are going to make money from him saying this.
Well, they did have their ceremony. Here it is. This is really it.
all back to hell where it belongs.
Send him back to hell where it belongs. Harry Potter, send him back to hell. What the hell? Oh my God. Whatever happened to the tires? Do you remember when we used to have bonfires? You burned tires, everybody turned, like sooty. Everybody got soot all over them and rubber. Now I'm going to show you some footage from not Greg Locke's book burning, but let's see if you recognize this book burning. Yeah. Did you show it?
Get on there late. Throw it again. Yeah.
Anybody recognize that? Yeah. What is up with this? What is up with the Nazi burning of books? What is going on in this country by virtue of morons with microphones? People literally showing up to burn books and Ouija boards and the Harry Potter is a fantasy book for it's just fantasy. It's fun. It ain't the devil. It's not witchcraft.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
God's about to bring the whole house down, ladies and gentlemen. These bunch of sex trafficking mongrels are about to be exposed.
What?
These bunch of pedophiles in Hollywood are going to be exposed for who they are. I don't care what you think about fraudulent Sleepy Joe. He's a sex trafficking, demon-possessed mongrel. He's of the left. He ain't no better than the Pope and Oprah Winfrey and Tom Hanks and the rest of that wicked crowd. God is going to bring the whole house down. I said he's going to bring the whole house down.
When he started talking about sex traffickers, I thought he was going to say Matt Getz.
It is interesting that everybody around Donald Trump has had, a sex trafficking case or cases. Some of them actually went to jail. Some of them died in jail. Ghislaine, whatever her name is, she's in jail for sex trafficking. You got Matt Getz, Jim Jordan that covered up the molestation of young wrestlers in Ohio in the Buckeye State. I mean, everyone around Donald Trump, and Donald Trump himself, where he actually said out loud on Howard Stern's show that he inspects the young Miss Teen USA contestants when they're naked, and they let him do it because he owns the pageant. I mean, it's such projection. It's so amazing. It's so decrepit as a way to make a living. I mean, how in the world do these people look at themselves in the mirror? I have no earthly idea. But the fraud that goes on, and that the people who are attending these tent revivals are repeatedly showing up for this guy and that guy and another guy and the one that's going to come after him and the one that came before him. And it's just such misplaced weakness. It's such a lack of self-awareness about all of the faculties you have, all of the abilities that you really do have as a human being, as a person with two hands and two eyes and, the ability to think, that you would turn your entire life, your being, and your happiness over to a schmuck like that, over to a scoundrel like that, over to a snake oil salesman, one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. And you know what's really sick about Pastor Greg Locke is that he had some inside information about January 6th. I mean, he really did. Listen.
And I'm telling you right now, with all of my soul, with all my heart, I've not lost one moment's sleep over what's going to happen on the 6th, on what's going to happen on the 20th. I'm telling you, church, we got this thing in the bag. I declare unto you that God Almighty is about to get glory. He's about to show up. He's about to step off his throne. He's about to do something in this nation that's going to be so glorious, so supernatural, so extraordinary that can't nobody get the glory except God. If you believe that, give him some praise under this tent. Yes, it's going to happen. Yes, it's going to happen.
Now, how did he know about January 6th? How did he know? Well, let's just put it this way. He's been to the White House. He's been to the White House. He's been there more than one time. The former guy literally went to all of these fraudsters, all of these snake oil salesmen, you know, because they are all a piece. They are all a part of the same scam. They are all frauds looking to fleece people who are weaker or more fragile or more delicate than most of us. And they defraud them repeatedly. And Trump thought this is a good in. Trump is one of the most debased, disgusting, conscienceless, immoral hucksters that we've ever seen in America, let alone in the Oval Office. I mean, I just can't even believe it happened. I can't even believe that a reality TV star was able to do this. But he, being a godless son of a bitch, decided he would go to guys like this, the real fraudsters, the real scam artists, and he would make a bond with them. And this included telling them nuggets of information so that they could be prophets to these people under the tent in Tennessee. And the nuggets included that they, at the White House, were engaged in an effort to overthrow the government. And they told this to the, I don't even want to call them evangelicals. They told it to the fraud and the scam artists out there, the snake oil salesmen out there, so that they could seem like God was speaking to them. No, Trump was speaking to them. Stephen Miller was speaking to them. Steve Bannon was speaking to them. Okay, these were people that were playing an inside game against everyone. Everyone. And these people, the Greg Locks of the world, the Jim Jordans of the world, the ones who really are involved in covering up bad behavior, they were the perfect pick for a Donald Trump. They were perfect. They were blackmailable. They were unreasonable. They were willing to defraud. They were willing to scam. They were willing to lie. They were willing to cheat. And that was all he needed. And he used them so that they could use you. It's sad. It breaks my heart. Anna in North Carolina.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Randy. Two things. Jim Baker, I mean, that guy, he speaks about the fact that, it was the deep state that put me in federal prison. I was innocent all the time, but that's not really the reason I called. The morons with microphones. I watch a lot of C-SPAN, especially in the morning, the Washington Journal.
Yeah, it's a great show.
Oh, my goodness. They are letting all the morons with...
But they always have. That's not new.
Well, it's really gotten bad. I mean,
yeah.
Well, this example really pissed me off. Buddy Carter, he's a representative from Georgia. He says he's a doctor. I don't know what kind of doctor he is. He goes, we have the doctor's caucus, and we're all concerned that Joe Biden, he should be taking a cognitive exam and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you're in the doctor's caucus, and you did nothing for the 4 years that the former guy did what he did to us as a
women, camera. Do you remember that?
So right. Camera, man, woman, TV.
Yeah. Genius.
So here's Buddy Carter, who says he's a doctor, going, the doctor's caucus, and we're all concerned. It's like, oh my gosh, I was so angry because he planted that seed. And this was like a Friday, a week ago today. And so Saturday, I thought, you know what? I didn't check or anything, but he'll be on Fox planting the same damn seed. You know what I mean? Saying, oh, my gosh, look, he needs to have an examination, the doctor's caucus. Did you ever know that there was a doctor's caucus in the House of Representatives?
No.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have.
Well, isn't Paul Gosar a doctor? Isn't Rand Paul a doctor? They're ophthalmologists and dentists, but they're doctors. No, these people are just devious scammers. They're literally disingenuous. They're fake. They're frauds.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
There's a book that we've seen that's in libraries and lots of schools that features a story of two daughters having sex with their dad.
Oh, wow.
They get their dad drunk to have sex with him. And this is like a book.
Should a book like that be in a school?
No.
No?
No.
Just get that out of the school.
Absolutely.
Why do the kids need to read that?
That book is actually the Bible.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yes. Yes, it's Sodom and Gomorrah. Yes, it is the Bible. It is the Bible. It's just the Bible is what it is. It's in there. Just saying. Mick in West Virginia.
Yes, Randy.
Hey.
I'd like to tell you how we could win the election.
All right.
If every delegate that's running or House of Representatives running and every senator on the Democratic side would just come out and say it. They want to legalize weed, and there we go. We'll have the votes, and we'll get right on in there.
So I will tell you this right now. We have a candidate running for governor here in Florida that is actually saying that. She's saying that if you elect her, she will legalize marijuana. And we'll see what happens, in the election. But her name's Nikki Fried. She's the agriculture commissioner, believe it or not. And she's running against Ron DeSantis. And
well, good. I'll tell my mom to vote. She lives in Daytona Beach.
There you go. And Nikki Fried is literally running on a lot of different things. But one of the things in her platform is the legalization of marijuana. Now, I don't know if you know this, but, I like growing it more than I like smoking it. But I do like growing it. I find it fun and exciting, and I just love doing it. And it's illegal here to do that. I can get a medical marijuana card and I could purchase it from a dispensary, but I can't grow my own.
How do you feel about criminal justice reform? If he would do something more with criminal justice reform, Biden, you think he'd get the black vote even more built up in the Hispanic vote?
Well, I don't know that there are more or less white people smoking pot than there are black people smoking pot. I think it's about...
Well, I'm just talking about in general, the whole reform issue, because there's a lot more people...
Reform. Well,
yeah.
we have a criminal justice system that is so skewed against people who can't afford $1,000 an hour, $2,000 an hour attorneys, that anybody that would approach saying we're going to even the playing field so that everybody, gets the exact same amount to defend themselves against anything that comes down the pike. I think it would be an interesting thing to talk about, but, Well,
that's just two ways I think that we could beat the Republicans. We got to keep on pushing. That's what we got to do.
Well,
every idea we can come up with.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, one of the things that we need to do is actually get the price of things down. And that's why the entire your senator, your guy, okay, both of them.
Oh, I can't stand neither one of them. I've called your show about Manchin before. He sent me over the edge 2 or 3 times.
And Capito too. Okay, these are people that are literally abusing your state and the people in it.
I know it. We're the poor state, lowest in health, most diabetes, poorest educated. We're always ranked in the last, and they've been scamming us for years. And Capito, her dad was the governor doing it in the 80s.
Right. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, the legacy, the whole legacy affirmative action thing they got going on there. This whole system has to be reformed, okay? It needs to be honest, and the only way to get honesty into politics, politics and honesty, I know, it's a strange thought, is to make my rule a thing. And my rule is simple. If you are using your official office, if you're saying I'm the senator of from West Virginia and I want to talk to you, or you're standing behind the seal of your state and you are using that official position to talk to the masses, to talk to people, you're under oath. You're under oath, subject to the laws of perjury if you lie to your constituents. I don't see why that's so difficult.
That would be a good one. I wished it would happen.
Me too. Have a good weekend. Stay warm.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Patrick in California.
Hi, Randy.
Hey.
I love the QAnon conspiracy theory about how Donald Trump had to have sex with all those underage girls when he was hanging out with Epstein for 30 years because he was undercover, man. He was trying to break up an international pedophile ring, and if he didn't have sex with these underage girls, then his cover would be blown. So, you know, he was working for God and purity and all
country, yeah. Something that has the letters of country in it, but yeah.
I like you were talking about projection. When these people keep going on and on and on about pedophiles here and there, I'm just thinking, you know, those who yell the loudest, you know, whoever smelt it dealt it. You know,
whoever denied it supplied it. I mean,
right?
Goes both ways.
When I lived in San Diego for 6 years, I didn't have access to KGO in the Bay Area and Ray Taliaferro, so all I had was Rick Roberts, so I'd call his show a lot. But he always did at the end of his show the list of the local pedophiles, and I always thought to myself in the back of my mind, is he promoting this because he really cares about kids, or is he, like, you know, covering his own tracks? When I had a once-a-week radio show from 92 to 94, public radio show, Graveyard, Sunday night, Monday mornings, I do music, the weirdest music I could find from the 60s and 90s, and mix it with interviews with the author of the Illuminati trilogy, Robert Anton Wilson, and getting back to this whole thing about the Potter books being demonic and witchcraft. Well, I mean, it is about kids at a school learning to play, you know, or learning to perform magic, but except there are no schools that exist like that, and magic isn't real. But we did an episode for one show that was all about Aleister Crowley, and I asked him if he could talk about stories like how once Aleister Crowley was supposedly at Oxford and he stared at a glass from across a table and it shattered. And Bob said his favorite story about Crowley was, well, I like the one where he and his son MacGregor, named after MacGregor Mathers, the outer head of the Ordo Templi Orientis and the Golden Dawn. Crowley and his son were at a Paris hotel room, and they were trying to conjure up the real, actual devil. And Crowley's son died in a violent, whatever. He died violently, and Crowley spent 6 months in a Paris sanitarium. And Bob said, "There's a lot of things I like about that story. Number one, there's no evidence that they ever did this, and they were ever at this hotel room at the time. Crowley, his son didn't die. Crowley didn't end up in a sanitarium, and his son never shared his father's interest in the occult or magic. And the other thing is that he never had a son named MacGregor or anything else. But there was a time where he actually was in court being sued by MacGregor Mathers because he had a falling out and was no longer in the Golden Dawn. So he said, well, F it. I'm just going to publish a thing called the Equinox, and I'm going to tell all the public every secret there is and every ritual of the Golden Dawn. So he's being sued, and the attorney or the prosecutor says, well, you've taken on the name 666. Is this not a number of evil? And Crowley responded, not at all. In Kabbalah, it means the sun. So if you want to, you can call me Sonny Boy.
Are you high?
No.
Oh.
But I will be.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Crowley, got it.
You know what is ironic, though? He brings up the Harry Potter books, and the Harry Potter books are no more fantastical.
And downshifts into Mr.
I know,
Crowley.
I don't know where that came from, but the Harry Potter books, they're no more fantastical than the Bible, and they're imbued with loyalty, courage, honor, friendship, all these wonderful principles, and they're burning it. And they're just burning it.
Well, I mean, these are fantasy books. They're, books. They're books. Books are supposed to, take you places. Books are supposed to enlighten you or at least entertain you. If they can't manage to enlighten, they're an amazing thing. I mean, everybody thinks, it's podcasts are great. They are great. Books are better. They're amazing. They're insanely entertaining and magical, and they take you places, and you can, depending on what you're reading, you could learn the law, you could learn, fraud, you could learn grift, you could learn fantasy, you could learn how to fight, you could learn, all in a book. It's all in a book. Books are amazing, and they want to burn them. So you have to ask yourself, why? Why are they against? And the answer is, you make much better slaves when you're uneducated. Much better worker bees, much more pliable, much more malleable when you know nothing. Think about that. You think about that. Slaves were not allowed to read.